Hi future officers, welcome back to the Analyst by Vajiram and Ravi, dated 24th February 2025. Today again we will be discussing some important topics that has appeared in today's The Hindu and The Indian Express newspapers, which are very relevant for your exam. In our first topic, we will look into the evolving dynamics of global skill shortage and the opportunities and challenges it presents to Indian youth. After that, in our second topic, we'll look into some of the reasons for high melting of glaciers and subsequent sea level rise, its impact and some solutions. Then, in our simplified section, we will take up 5 articles and we will try to explain them in simplest language possible to enrich your understanding of the newspapers. Additionally, we have also incorporated some prelims pointers which is going to be very crucial for your upcoming prelims 2025 examination. So, have a look on them also and stay tuned. So, our first topic is the talent shortage, the global challenges it presents as well as the opportunities it presents to India. And this has been written by the Director General of the Federation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry on the backdrop of a recent study which has been done by the FICCI and KPMG on the global mobility of Indian workforce, and which has estimated that by 2030 the demand for skilled workers will exceed the supply of the skilled workers. And this particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 2, skill development, education, as well as the government policies and interventions. So, what is the difference between the talent as well as the skill? The talent is an innate ability of a person, whereas the skill is generally a acquired ability. For example, there can be a cricketer who can continuously ball for more than 150 kilometers per hour because of the innate ability of the person or because of the talent that he was born in a particular place, and the food habits, the climate of that place, as well as the genetics has played a huge role in his or her talent. Whereas if he will have to get a proper success in the cricket, he will have to hone his skills of the line and length of the bowling, of yorkers, bouncers, etc., that he will acquire with the proper practice and training. And this study says that at global level we'll face a talent shortage of over 85.2 million people by 2030. And this shortage will materialize into almost $8.45 trillion unrealized annual revenue loss by 2030, which is equivalent to the GDPs of Germany and Japan combined. What is the GDP or the gross domestic product? It is the total monetary value of all the goods and services that is produced in the domestic territory during a financial year. Now, the writer says that this shortage of 85.2 million people as well as this unrealized annual revenue loss which the global economy will face is providing an opportunity for India. What opportunity? That India can get a major pie of this unrealized loss in the annual global revenue. How? Because India will supply the skilled workforce to the global economy. Why? Because as per this India Employment Report 2024, India's working age population would be around 1.12 billion by 2047, which is the single largest workforce of any country globally. And that means we can bridge this gap of demand and supply between the global shortage that global economy is going to face in future. But what are the major issues that has been highlighted by some of the recent incidents also? For example, US has deported various people who have illegally migrated to US. Why? Because US faces a shortage of skilled workforce. Right? But these people who are employed generally, their employers do not want to go through the formal routes because they will have to comply with various social security benefits, various other legal norms, that they will have to provide those employees all the things which are required to be provided to any of the formal employees. And that is the reason the people tries to sneak in US through the illegal route, which is also called as the donkey route. Why? First of all, because there is demand of these skilled persons or semi-skilled persons who are going from India. For example, I have read one of the case studies that a good restaurant in US wanted some of the facilities or some of the requirements of Indian chefs. Now, if they will issue the visa or the Indian chefs will go through the visas, everything, the particular restaurant will have to comply with various other norms. And that is the reason there is a cartel working, that there will be some of the employers who are in need of the Indian workforce or Indian persons. Now they will contact to some of the middlemen these middlemen will take money from these innocent people, and then they will send these persons illegally through various sea route as well as the routes from various forests, etc., from Mexico border, Panama, etc. Now the major issue involved in this, that these people do not have the proper sufficient safety measures provided in the US. Also, they have this risk of getting caught and further deported with handcuffed and everything else. Apart from that, another thing that you have to understand, that why people are interested in going through this route, which is so riskier that they can lose their lives. And as per some of the media reports in last few days, there are a lot of people from Punjab and Haryana who are still missing, who have gone through this donkey route. Either they have lost their lives in the route itself, or there has been something else that happened to them which is unknown. Because of the fact that there is high unemployment in India. That is the fact that we have to understand. And second thing that we have to understand, that there is demand from some of the global countries like US, Mexico, Canada, or the European Union countries or European countries. They require the facilities of these persons, and these persons are ready to work at low wages as compared to the persons of those nations. And despite agreeing to a low wages, the wages that these people are going to get, that is much higher as compared to the wages that they will be getting in India itself. For example, these persons who are going to US, they can generate around 1 lakh or 1.5 lakhs monthly income, and they will be living on some of the shared accommodation, and they will not do much of the expenditure, and they can save around 12 lakh rupees annually. And to earn 12 lakh rupees annually in India, the person will have to do lot of engineering, lot of other things, and still there is no guarantee that that person will get a 12 lakh annual package. So the people have this tendency that they will go to these countries, they will work for 4-5 years, they will earn money, they will save, they will invest some of amount in the education of their family members, in the marriages of the family members, and they will come back and they will start some business. So that is the reason they are taking this risk. So there is a clear demand supply factors that is involved, that why these people are going. So what are the challenges that are being faced by India to address or to materialize this opportunity which is being made available by the global skill shortage? The first is the challenge of future ready skilled workforce. That is, there is mismatch between the demand of the industry as well as the what skill sets our current workforce have. For example, demand of industry is artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things. But do our workforce have these kind of skills? First of all, there are very limited institutes who are providing some of the guidance training or the degrees in these courses. So they are not available in the courses itself. So how people will learn these kind of skills? So this global workforce demand is evolving skill requirements. It demands evolving skill requirements, and until and unless our workforce will be future ready, it will be supplied with those evolving requirements, our workforce will not be able to get proper jobs in the global market. Also, India do have an opportunity because we already have the talent, we already have the working age population. We have to supply them proper skills. For example, in your UPSC preparation itself, you people know everything, that what is the class I have to attend, how we have to use that class, what is the book list that I have to read, everything you know. But you will have to read that properly, you will have to revise that properly, you will have to practice that properly, because again and again I reiterate the same thing, that this examination is not difficult because of the fact that some rocket science is being asked in this examination. This examination is only difficult because of the fact, because the syllabus is huge. You need to revise the whole syllabus multiple times. You need to practice this syllabus properly, the practice of the MCQs, practice of answer writing, so that you can solve various MCQs in the actual examination in the limited time. You can complete your mains paper in the limited time, and ensuring that you are writing a proper good content. So this process what makes this examination difficult. So we have the working age population, we have that demography, we'll have to equip them with proper skill sets. And that is one of the way that we can supply these workforce to the global demand. Then the geographic demand for the skilled workforce. For example, some of the Gulf countries, some of the countries in the Europe, some of the countries in the US, etc. They are facing a severe skill shortages, and India can fill that gap. But some of the emerging sectors, like in the health sector, in the evolving technologies sector, there is a greater demand that is brewing. So until and unless we'll equip our workforce for that, these people will be only available or only equipped to do some of the menial works. So we have to ensure that we skill our workforce. Then the barriers to the workforce mobility. As of now, there are a lot of barriers between India and other countries, that we do not have the proper agreements that what should be the plan of mobility of the people from India to another country. There are various visa issues that are involved, and that keeps on changing with each regime changes. So this regulatory and the immigration barriers, as well as the skill mismatches, as well as the language and the cultural barriers in that particular country, all these creates a major challenge which India needs to address. The cultural barriers, like the food habits of that particular country, the climate of that particular country. There are many people who feel homesickness after going there, and there are other issues like the language of that people, and some of the issues that Indian people generally have that negligent attitude, that you don't have to deface the public property, you don't have to spit on the road. All these are some of the basic etiquettes which are very strictly followed in the global countries, and these people who are going, when they are not properly trained to ensure that they follow this civic behavior, sometimes they face some of the issues. Then the uneven skill distribution, that is the rural-urban divide. Still, a majority of the rural economy is still dependent on the agriculture itself. They are not getting that opportunity to hone their skill on any of the other areas. The gender divide between the skill distribution, that has been also highlighted by the Global Gender Gap Index, that India's 50% of the population, that is women population, do not have the proper facilities to even access the basic skill sets, and that limits their presence in the majority of the economy. And when their presence is limited, obviously it will create the challenges. What kind of challenges? When our 50% of population is not fully participating in the economy, how we can think that we will achieve our potential GDP? So this uneven skill distribution, that is the divide that we are witnessing in the rural and the urban areas, the divide that we are witnessing in the the context of different genders, that needs to be bridged. The quality of the education and the training, and this has been dealt to a larger extent by the national education policy, which has focused on the vocational education, etc. Because still a majority of the curriculum is not updated. Just recall the engineers that are watching these lectures. Do you really think that the things that are taught in that 4 years course that has helped you to get a proper job, until and unless you have learned some of the codings, etc. on your own? So why can't these things which can make us employable can be provided in the college itself? So the training as well as the digital divide is one of the major factors that only focus on the theoretical aspect. There are lot of colleges, lot of universities which have only a basic limited availability of the various lab equipments. Various practical knowledge are completely missing in majority of the college and as well as the universities. And until and unless that practical knowledge would be provided, it will be very difficult for our workforce to equipped with these evolving and emerging technologies. And to address this skill shortage, the government of India has launched various programs. For example, the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana 4.0, which is which is focusing on training youth with future ready skills. The objective is to train the youth of India with practical skills for better job opportunities and a brighter future. This was launched in 2023-24 budget, that is the 4.0 PMKVY. Initially it was launched in 2015 itself, the first phase. The eligibility is for any unemployed youth and school or college dropouts between 18 to 45 years age. This is very much important, whatever the requirements, because in the 2024 prelims examination there were various questions which has been asked on the schemes itself, to try to ensure that while preparing various schemes, do ensure that the eligibility criteria for the scheme, for example, I think they have asked about the Janani Suraksha Yojana and one other scheme related to the pensions, etc. So for preparing every scheme, you need to focus on the eligibility criteria, the ministry of that scheme, as well as the major features of that scheme. The components of this Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana are the short-term training, recognition of prior learning, special projects and placement assistance after completing the course. The training duration vary from 200 to 600 hours depending on the specific job role. The monetary reward, the participants who complete their training can receive an average rupees 8,000. There are various Kaushal Melas that are also being organized by the government to raise awareness about the scheme and assist the enrollments, and the management of this scheme has been provided with the Ministry of Skill and Development and Entrepreneurship, and this is the place from where we have seen a previous year question also, which we'll discuss. And this question, that is National Apprentice Program Scheme, which has been approved to provide training to over 50 lakh youngsters. 10,000 crore was approved for apprentice training to create more jobs, that is learning and earning together. India aims to train 50 lakh apprentices, an increase of 22-fold from the present strength. Huge skill development is aimed by subsidized training to get the skilled workforce. There are various ITI etc. that has been also established to provide proper apprentice. And the biggest monetary reward initiative in the last 7 years for the skill development, that is this National Apprentice Promotion Scheme. And government will bear the 25% of the stipend and 50% of cost per apprentice of the academic training of an apprentice. Also, this National Skill Development Council, which has with the various partnership, they are aiming to equip students with industry relevant skills that are demanded by the industry at present, create opportunities for the employment, and bridge the skill deficit, that is gap that our that our workforce presently have, and also foster a culture of lifelong learning, that if you have learned something, don't only limit that particular thing to a particular stage. For example, that is the thing we keep on saying, that if you have learned the fundamental rights from your Lakshmikant or from your class notes or your yellow book, don't limit yourself on that book itself. Try to integrate the current affairs regularly. That is the thing that you have to focus. That is the lifelong learning that you have to focus on for this preparation also. Also, empower India's youth through skills and be a future ready workforce and creating a skilled workforce. These are some of the aims of this NSDC. Also, at global front, India joined forces with the European Union. India is also going for materializing various diplomatic channels so that some of the global mobility partnerships can be ensured, so that Indian workforce can get access to some of the global markets. And India has signed one of the partnerships with the EU for the Skill India missions. This was the news of the 2016-17. And what should be done so that India can leverage these opportunities of the global skill shortage? First of all, there is need for sector specific skill training, and for that we need to do some of the basic homework, that we should survey the global economic market, that what global market demands, that whether it is demanding the skill of health, whether it is demanding the skills of the technology sector, so that we can provide those skills to our workforce and they can be better employable at the global market. Also, there is need for curriculum updation, and this has been one of the major issue which has continuously been seen across various universities and the colleges, that way they are very apprehensive about the curriculum changes despite the consistent effort by the government, despite the various policies like national education policy etc. Because until unless that curriculum will update and it will evolve with the global economic changes, global skill changes that we are witnessing, these people who are graduating, these people who are getting degree, they will not be employable properly. Also, there is need for regulation of requirement practices. For example, India can go for various partnership or various agreements with various countries where our most of the skilled workforce or the semi-skilled workforce are going, that there, so that they do not have to go through that illegal route, which is leading to a lot of exploitation, as well as that can be life threatening, because any of the person who has gone through this donkey route or illegal route, when that particular person is getting any job, obviously employer will go for the exploitation. They may threaten him ki will tell the police personals that you are an illegal immigrant here. So the bargaining capacity of that person reduces, and he somewhat goes through that exploitation by the employer so that they can earn money. And we can ensure that some of the diplomatic channels can be leveraged, some of the partnerships can happen with the various countries, so that the employees who are going, they do not have to witness, they do not have to go through various exploitation, and they can have a safe as well as healthy conditions for working. Also, there is need for recognition of qualification with better certification schemes that can make them better employable. Also, there is need for global collaboration through various multilateral as well as the bilateral efforts, as well as there is need for public-private partnership. As of now, the contribution on the research and development is 0.67%. The contribution on the skill improvement is very less as percentage of GDP, and the contribution of private sector towards the research and development as well as the skill development is very abysmal. So there is need for better public-private partnerships. For example, some of the CSR funds or CSR spendings can be utilized for providing skills, etc. So these kind of innovative methods can be leveraged to ensure that our workforce are getting proper skills. Also, there is need for the circular migration models. For example, there can be temporary work visas that can be provided. There can be the rotational workforce model that, for example, there are some sectors which require only seasonal employments. So there can be some type of understanding between India or any of the other countries that these limited set of the people will only go for these limited time period in this particular time of the year, to ensure that what is the seasonal employment that has generated in that particular place, they can work and they can earn through that. A prelims question that was asked in 2017, that is the recognition of prior learning scheme, is sometime mentioned in the news with reference to. You people please tell me the answer of this question in the comment box. And similarly, this question that was asked in 2018, that with reference to Pradhan Mantri Kausal Vikas Yojana, consider the following statement, and this question can be also solved with the things that we have discussed previously. Now, one observation again that you can get for your upcoming prelims examination, that see, they have asked one question related to skills in 2017 examination. Again, they have asked one question related to one of the skills of the skill development in the 2018 examination. So that is the point that we keep on emphasizing, that whatever the things that has been asked previously, especially in last 2-3 days, try to prepare that properly, because there are high chances that you will get questions on that theme in the upcoming examination. So the people who are giving examination in the 25 or the 26, do ensure that you analyze the last 5 years PYQ properly. Whatever the themes that has been asked in these 5 years, do prepare that. Don't prepare that superficially. Don't do PhD. Try to maintain a balance, and with the help of PYQ analysis itself, you can get an idea to what depth UPSC can ask a question related to any of the topic. For example, related to schemes, that what I told, that you need to prepare the eligibility criteria, you need to prepare the ministry, you need to prepare the features of that scheme. And in the previous year, whatever the questions, majority of the questions that were asked related to the schemes, they could be solved with the help of these 3 parameters only. So I will prepare most of the schemes according to these parameters, until unless there is something very specific about any one scheme. A mains practice question from this particular topic is this. So our second topic is melting glaciers, rising sea level, the likely impact. The context of this topic is that a study says that almost 2 centimeters of sea level rise this century was due to melting of glaciers. This particular topic pertains to syllabus of your GS paper 3, conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. And this has been on the backdrop of a journal which has been published in The Nature, which talks about the community estimates of global glacier mass changes from 2000 to 2023. And it says that there has been a loss of around 273 billion tons of ice each year, and all the ice which is melting is supplying the water to oceans as well as seas. And every centimeter of this sea level rise exposes another 2 million people to annual flooding somewhere on our planet. This has been highlighted by this journal. And if you talk about the Indian context, the worst city which has been impacted by the rise in the sea level is Mumbai, where we have witnessed a rise of 4.44 centimeter between 1987 and 2021. Also, another thing that you have to understand, that at global level we are still not very sure about this climate change. The efforts, for example, the US have came out of Paris Climate Agreement because they think that they are overpaying to some of the developing countries to address the climate change. So still at the global level, we do not have a consensus that climate change is one of the pressing and major issue. And that is the reason some of the smaller island countries are time and again highlighting this. For example, in year 2021, there is a country named Tuvalu. You people tell me that this Tuvalu is located in which continent of the world? The foreign minister of this Tuvalu has gave a speech on the backdrop of COP26 at Glasgow by keeping himself in a knee-submerged water. Why? To signify or to give a message to the global leaders as well as to the globe that climate change, melting of the glaciers as well as the rise in the sea level is one of the important issue, and some of the smaller countries, less developed countries or the poor countries are one of the significant areas or significant countries which are much impacted due to these climate changes. Also, there are various smaller countries. For example, the country which is one country is the Kiribati, which is located in Oceania region. They are almost going to be submerged in the water itself because of the rise in the sea level that we are witnessing. Also, if you look into this graph from World Meteorological Organization State of Global Climate Report, it is showing that from 1993, there has been a consistent increase in the global sea levels. That shows the abysmal condition of the rising sea level. Also, what are the reasons for the sea level rise? The first important is the global warming, that is a rise in the global temperature, and we have moved beyond that target of pre-industrial level that we have to keep our temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius, what it was at the pre-industrial level. We have already breached that, and due to this rise in the global temperatures, rise in the global warming, which is majorly due to the anthropogenic activities like global greenhouse emissions, etc. that we are doing, that since 2000, almost the glacier which are lost are between 2% to 39% of their ice regionally at some of the regions like Greenland, etc. and about 5% globally we have lost some of the ice. Also, another important reason is the thermal expansion of water, which is related to the global increase in the temperature or the global warming. What happens when the heat is supplied to the water, it expands. The heat energy that the molecules of the water gets, that increases their kinetic energy, and the volume of the water increases, and that leads to expansion of the water. And when water expands, when water gets warmed up, it expands, and when it expands, it also leads to increase in the sea level. So because of this rising mean temperature, sea level mean temperature, we are also witnessing a rise in the sea levels. Also, some of the natural factors like tectonic movements due to various seismic activities, due to the interaction of various plate boundaries, as well as the change in the path of the ocean currents, we are also witnessing these sea level changes. Also, the anthropogenic factors like the over exploitation of groundwater that we are witnessing, and all these waters that are coming from the waste, etc., that we are dumping in some of the water bodies, that is also to some extent leading to increase in the sea levels. Then the climate change is another important major issue. That, for example, there has been increased cases of incessant rainfall. The pattern that we were earlier witnessing is not being followed nowadays. For example, if you look into this picture, that is mapping the rainfall spread, which has been sourced from Indian Meteorological Department, that 8% of area have overall excess rain recorded. Large excess area are some of these coastal states like Maharashtra, Gujarat, etc. Now, when these areas are facing large excess rainfall due to various climate change factors which are impacting this, obviously when more rainfall, then more sea level rise. And if you look into this data, that which is the median projections of global and regional sea level rise or fall relative to 1995 to 2014 baseline, that it says that by 2040, the Mumbai will witness almost 0.12 or the 0.11, that is B double star is the best case scenario to keep global emissions to net zero around mid-century, and A is the current scenario of the global emission level in line with the collectively NDC contribution that we have done by that we have kept a target to achieved by 2030. So even if we'll able to achieve the targets that we have made for 2030 will witness this much rise, and if we'll be able to follow or achieve that target of net zero by the middle of this century, then we will witness this much of rise, and by 2050 there will be a more rise that we can witness. Some of the cities like Kochi and the Vizag, Mangaluru, Chennai, Mumbai will be some of the coastal cities which will be much impacted. And for example, in Kochi itself, that will be one of the cities which will rise much higher than the global average. Then another thing that we have to understand is the impact of this sea level rise, how this is impacting. First of all, it is leading to coastal erosion as well as flooding. What we have witnessed in Kerala with regard to the Chennai floods, Kochi floods, which have also led to overflowing as well as opening of Idukki Dam, and which has further led to lot of loss of life and property, as well as the rainfall that we have witnessed in some of the other cities which are located around our coastal India. Then the displacement of population. For example, one of the Odisha's coastal village named Satyabhaya has been completely abandoned due to the rise in the sea levels. Also, the ecosystem damage that is we may witness or we are witnessing due to sea level rise. For example, the Chilika Lake, which is facing threats due to rising salinity as well as the shrinking area of the Chilika Lake. Why? Because we are witnessing intrusion of seawater around the lake area due to increase in the sea level rise. Also, the degradation of various other natural ecosystems like the coastal coral reef erosion or the degradation, and that we have witnessed in the Gulf of Mannar region, the stress that are being felt by the coral reefs. Also, the economic consequences of this sea level rise, that is the Chennai's 2015 flood have worsened the rising seas, and which has amounted to losses of over $3 billion. Then the cultural and historic losses that we are witnessing, that we may witness. The Shore Temple in Mahabalipuram, which is located in Tamil Nadu, they are risked with the coastal erosion that we are witnessing due to increased rainfall, increased flooding, as well as the increase in the sea level. And this may lead to an erosion of our cultural heritage, which we have preserved since time immemorial. So these are some of the impacts of the rising sea level across various domains. So what should be done? What should be our approach? First, we need to strengthen the coral infrastructure, that we need to build resilient structures, construct sea walls as well as flood barriers and the elevated buildings, so that the rising sea levels can impact to a lesser extent. But we need to ensure that the natural path of the river water, everything should not be disturbed. Also, the nature-based solutions. For example, we need to restore the mangroves. One of the major reasons why we have seen the losses in some of the areas of the West Bengal, Odisha, etc., because of the loss of mangroves that we are witnessing due to the climate change, due to the pollution of air as well as soil, due to the increased use of fertilizers, which is further impacting the quality of the water, etc. So these kind of mangroves, etc., can be a natural barriers for increased sea levels, increased increase tides, increase floods, etc. The coral reef and the wetland restoration, which was also called as the kidneys of our environment. And then the policy and the governance measures, for example, integrated coastal zone management, and with the help of this various coastal regulation zones has been categorized, CRZ rules, and government has told that what are the different activities that are permitted along these CRZ. There is need for a proper oversight mechanism to ensure that this is followed in letter and spirit. Apart from that, what we have witnessed few years back, there was a Supreme Court ruling to ensure that some of the buildings which were built in the CRZ rules, CRZ zones, they were completely demolished after the order of the Supreme Court. So why can't we ensure that these type of activities are not happening in the first stage itself? Why we should wait for those things that it is the Supreme Court and the NGTs which should come in picture, when they will order only then we will follow? Because if we are disturbing nature, then when nature will disturb us, we will not be able to face the disturbance which is coming from the nature itself. Also, there is need for strict regulations. We need to enforce a proper building codes and restricts construction in some of the vulnerable zones, some of the natural natural course of water, etc. Also, we need to ensure the climate adaptation measures are properly adapted with the help of proper capacity building of the government, with the help of proper capacity building of the people from the government. And we need to invest in early warning system. We need to invest in more research and development, and for that global collaborations can happen. We can follow some of the best practices of some of the global countries like Japan, etc., who have developed some early warning systems for tsunami, etc. Also, there is need for community preparedness, that we need to train our coastal communities in disaster response and evacuation. And we can also provide some of the sustainable livelihood opportunities in the areas of aquaculture, in the areas of sustainable fisheries, etc. Because as of now, various measures or various things that are followed by the communities, for example, deep sea trawling, that disturbs the ecology or the environment of our marine ecosystem. Because when our marine ecosystem gets developed, the coral reefs are getting disturbed, the mangroves are getting disturbed, it will not act as a natural cushion from the increased sea level rise, tides, floods that we'll witness. Also, there is need for global and regional cooperations, and we need to ensure that whatever the agreements which has been finalized under the Paris agreements, etc., they need to be followed in letter and spirit, and we need to strengthen the commitments which has been done under the Paris agreement as well as other frameworks which we have committed. Also, there is need for ensuring proper public awareness and education with the help of better community education engagement. We need to educate our coastal population about the risk as well as the adaptation strategies that are needed. This is all from this topic. This is one of the questions that discuss the major reasons for sea level rise and evaluates it for reaching impacts on ecosystem, economies and human population. This question you can write. So in our simplified section, the first topic is the necessity infusion. This particular topic relates to your GS paper 3, growth and development, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 6. So the context is that the RBI had recently decided to inject an additional $10 billion into the financial system through a dollar-rupee swap auction, and which is a timely measure aimed at addressing the long-term liquidity concerns among the domestic lenders. As of now, what is happening? Understand, the rupee is depreciating. The rupee is losing its strength. Why? Because of the trade wars, the tariff wars that is going on in the US and the rest of the world, the various measures that are being announced by the president. So the rupee is depreciating. It is losing its value. Earlier, let's suppose $1 was equal to 80. Now $1 has become to 100 rupees. So the strength of rupee is losing because of, and there are various other factors, for example, the selling of the FPIs that we are witnessing, all those things. So these concerns are stemming from a flight of foreign capital from Indian stock market as investors seek better return in the United States amid the president's post corporate tax rate cuts and ongoing tariff wars which has strengthened the US dollars against the global currencies. What is happening? Let's suppose in the US, the president President has announced the rationalization of corporate tax. When the corporate tax will be rationalized, some of the major companies will be paying less amount of the taxes, and when they will have to pay some less amount of taxes, that money they will be further investing in the economy, which will increase the profitability of these companies. So these companies who have earlier invested in Indian companies, when they are selling, they are leaving India, then why they are leaving? Because they see a better future in the US market because of the lot of reforms that are going to happen in the US market. Now, when these foreign investors are leaving India, they are demanding dollars and they are selling rupees. So the rupee availability is increasing in the economy and the availability of dollar is decreasing. So that is further leading to the rupee depreciation, which we have discussed. So here at this time, this marks the second such rupee infusion in less than a month. However, unlike the first tranche of $5 billion on January 31, which had a 6-month tenure, that when the foreign capital is being further, they are demanding more and more money and they are leaving India. So in that case, the liquidity crunch is being witnessed in the economy itself, that these companies do not have proper capital to further invest in the economies. The banks are finding it difficult to further lend to these companies. And the first tranche was on January 31 of $5 billion, which had a 6-month tenure. The latest swap auction has a 3-year duration. The combined effect of these two auctions will inject approximately $1.3 trillion rupees into the banking system as lender deposit their dollar reserves with RBI in exchange of rupees at predetermined price. The lenders or the commercial bank deposit their dollars with the banks, and then they take money and they further inject that liquidity in the economy, and after a fixed period they further buy back those dollars that they have supplied to the RBI. Now these currency swaps, and obviously what is the motivating factor, with the help of which they get this money? The motivating factor is this buyback premium, that when they will be buying back those dollars which has been supplied earlier to the this RBI, and which in tenure of that has given rupee to these commercial bank to inject in the economy. So the premium they will be paid after they will be returning that. The currency swaps are among the tools central banks deployed during the period of high volatility in global financial system. These measures have the primary aim of stabilizing the local currency, mitigating liquidity constraint in the domestic financial system. That the liquidity crunch that we are witnessing due to the flight of the capital, that can be addressed well. And this is the second time the RBI has conducted this long-term currency swap. The first was in 2019 in response to the global financial volatility during Mr. Trump's first term. So what we can conclude, that in the first term also there were a lot of global volatility that was there, and after assuming office for the second term, then again that is clearly visible. Between October 24 to Feb 21-25, the rupee has depreciated approximately to 3.3 against the dollar, breaching the 85 per dollar mark on December 19, 2024, and it has also gone above 87 rupees per dollar. Foreign portfolio investors and foreign institutional investors have withdrawn roughly $31 billion from Indian equity market, and since December 24, the RBI sold an estimated $1.2 billion, about 18% of its foreign exchange reserves in the economy, to ensure that there is no liquidity crunch in the economy. And majorly it was to stabilize the rupee against the dollar also, so that the rupee depreciation that we were witnessing, that can be tackled well, and that is the reason RBI was supplying these dollars. And given these conditions, the latest long-term currency swap appeared to be a necessity rather than a proactive measure. Indian banks must capitalize on this liquidity infusion by continuing to extend credit, ensuring that the cycle of capital investment, employment generation, wage growth and consumer demand remains intact, and this in turn could help propel India's real GDP growth rate beyond the current 6.4% despite the prevailing global economic headwind. So what is happening here? Understand that, let's suppose if there will be liquidity crunch in the economy, the private investment would not find the proper capital to invest in the economy, and that is the reason when the liquidity is proper in the economy, the banks lend to these private companies, who after getting this capital invest in these companies, which leads to a greater production of goods and services. When there is greater production of goods and services happening, they further leads to a more employment generation. When more employment is getting generated, then it leads to a greater wages that people get. When more wages people are getting, more earnings they are doing, they demand more goods and services. When more goods and services they are demanding, that further leads to an increased production of the goods and services to meet the demand of the increased consumption. But then the companies will supply further. When they want to increase the supply, they further invest in the economy. When they invest in the economy, that further leads to employment generation, further wage growth, further demand. So this is a cycle that will go on. And as we know that in the GDP we have four components: household consumption expenditure, private investment, then the government expenditure, which involves government spending plus the investment that they are doing, plus the net of exports, that is export minus import. Now here, when the consumption expenditure is increasing, that is also leading to an increased GDP growth. The private investment is happening, that is also leading to GDP growth, and the government spending, that further lead to crowding effect of the private investment, that further leads to a proper GDP growth rate. So if this cycle will continue properly, then we will be able to achieve this target of 6.4% GDP growth rate, despite the economic headwinds, despite the various issues that are emanating out of different issues that are going on at between different countries among the world. Now another tool that the RBI have is the open market operations. Here the central bank in India, it is RBI, buys the government securities, and when they are buying the government security, they are adding money into the banking system, which leads to the cheaper loan becoming available with the commercial bank, which leads to further lending to the private investors or the private companies. They further take the cheaper loans from these commercial banks, and that leads to a further cycle which we have discussed, that is investment, more production of goods and services, employment generation, wages, as well as the consumption demand. The opposite is that when the central bank sells the government securities, they remove money from the banking system, and here the loans become expensive because liquidity is very less, and it is majorly done to curb the inflation in the economy, to curb the high money supply or the high liquidity in the economy. So majorly it can be defined as buying and selling of the government securities by the central bank in the open market, and in India it is the Reserve Bank of India, which is our central bank, conducts the open market operations to influence the reserves of commercial banks and to control the credit creation power and affect the market rate of interest. Why? Because when, let's suppose, central bank is selling the government securities, which is sucking up the liquidity from the economy, that will make the loans very costlier or expensive, and that means that market interest rate is also getting determined with the help of these open market operations that the central bank is doing. Now you people tell me in the comment box that this open market operations is a quantitative tool of the Reserve Bank of India or the qualitative tool of the Reserve Bank of India to address the liquidity in the economy. Moving towards our next topic, that is UGC's CARE list of journals. This is related to your GS paper 2, Education, Government Policies and Intervention. This has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 8. So the context is that the UGC, that is University Grant Commission, had decided to discontinue this UGC Consortium for Academic and Research Ethics UGC-CARE list, which is a list of quality academic journals first introduced in 2018, and it will be replaced by a set of suggestive parameters for choosing the journals based on the 8 criteria, and the stakeholders involved in this can submit their recommendation by Feb 2025. The new parameters, the 36 suggestive parameters under the 8 criteria in the draft notification titles suggestive parameters for peer-reviewed journals. And why UGC withdraw this earlier consortium for academic and research ethics? The aim was to ensure only reputable journals are recognized for faculty selections, promotions and research funding applications. Whatever the listings that is done, based on that, they are made available to various companies, they are made available to various researchers, and they can attract some of the investment, they can attract some of the good appreciation from some of the reputed or relevant people. And according to the chairman of the UGC-CARE list faced several criticism, including over-centralization in deciding what constitute high quality research and journals, and unnecessary delays including excluding journals from the list, and academics had also raised concern that in certain fields such as Tamil, the availability of research journals were limited as per the UGC-CARE list. Now UGC claims that the new approach will help in combating the predatory journals, that the journals which has been copied from somewhere, and decentralized mechanism of choosing the academic journals. The higher education institution will now be responsible for establishing the credible mechanisms to evaluate journals and ensure that they meet the high ethical and scholarly standards, and they can help their own institutional mechanisms for evaluating the quality of publication and the journals. So majorly the higher educational institutions has been given more power to decide this. Also, these mechanisms should align with the established academic norms and indicative parameters suggested by the UGC. So the response is that students as academics have noticed their concerns on the latest move. Their main worry is that decision will result in the mushrooming of the low quality journals, and that might impact some of the better quality of the journals. Why? Because this will be based on these parameters rather than a centralized authority deciding what constitute a good journal or a better quality of the journals. Now, this UGC was formed on December 28, 1953. It became a statutory body through the UGC 1956 Act. The primary role of UGC is to coordinate and maintain the university education standards. They helps in curriculum building, etc. The regulation that it monitors fake universities time to time, and again they publish the list of fake universities, autonomous colleges as well as the deemed universities. The distance education is also regulated by the UGC. Head office of UGC is located in New Delhi itself. Next topic is that India-UK proposed FTA talks set to resume today after 8 months, and this is related to GS paper 2, that is effect of policies and politics of countries on India's interest, international treaties and agreements, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express page number 10. So the context is that after a gap of 8 months, India and UK will resume negotiation on free trade agreement on Monday under the shadow of Trump barriers that have plunged the world into uncertainty. Prior to opening of the 15th round of negotiation, US Secretary for State Business will hold a bilateral meeting with the Commerce and Industry Minister of India, that is Mr. Piyush Goyal. And this visit comes on the backdrop among the personal storm he faces at home over the alleged falsifying his legal career. That is, the Secretary of State for Business is facing some of the charges for falsifying his legal career. The FTA negotiations were paused in May 2024 because of the general elections in both India and the UK, and the Trump tariffs can also impart some urgency towards concluding this negotiation. Why? Because when two countries sign the free trade agreements, they try to diminish or reduce the number of tariffs that are earlier applicable between the import and exports of both the countries. Because of the tariff war that is going on, because of the uncertainty that is brewing, because of the steps that are being taken by the US president, it becomes much more important for India and UK to conclude this FTA so that they can have a better market access for various commodities. Also, since last round of talks, India has on its own brought down import duties on cars, motorcycle and even select bourbon whiskey which is produced in US. And a proposal has also been moved in the parliament to increase the foreign direct investment limit in insurance to 100%, lower duty on cars and insurance liberalization, which were some of the demands of the UK itself. If we want to categorize the different trade agreements, the first important is the preferential trade area, which is the first step towards lowering the various duties among two countries, where the countries lower but not eliminate the barriers among the members. Then we have the free trade area, where the countries eliminate internal barriers but maintain an independent external barriers. Means within themselves they are reducing the duties, but what duty they will be levying for any of the other countries, that is the complete domain of that country itself. For example, if India and UK are signing this free trade agreement, so they will reduce their duty among themselves, but what duty India will have with US, Australia, that will not be determined based on this FTA. Then we have the customs union, which eliminate the internal barriers, agree on common external barriers also. That is what will be the duty between India, US, India, Australia also, apart from the duties between India and UK. For example, there is European Union, Turkey or Russia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, that was signed in 2010. That can be an example of customs union. Then we have the common market, which eliminate the internal barriers, adopt the common external barriers, allow free movement of resources. That is not only the goods and services, it is the labor also which has gained a greater mobility. And it is happening among the member countries. For example, Mercosur, that is the East African Common Market or the West African Common Market are the example of common market. Then we have the economic union, which eliminate the internal barrier, adopt external common barriers, free movement of resources, that is goods and services, as well as the labor, investment, etc., and a uniform set of economic policies. There is a policy coherence, policy uniformity. Example is European Union. Then we have the full integration. For example, in the United States, the integration that we are witnessing among the different states, that they have a common set of internal barrier, external barriers, free movement of resources, as well as a common economic policies for all the states. Also, you tell me there is a positive list of goods and services and the negative list of goods and services, in which the particular trade agreement, the positive list is maintained, in which agreement it is the negative list which is maintained. Our next topic is martial law, and this has appeared in today's The Hindu, page number 11. This is related to your GS paper 2, fundamental rights. So the context is that the PDP chief said in the assembly that it is the duty of the speaker of the assembly to safeguard the rights of the members of the house, and he should not act as a censor. And she also accused the speaker of imposing a form of martial law while occupying a constitutional position. So this martial law in India, which has been mentioned in Article 34 of the Constitution, which talks about the suspension of fundamental rights during the martial law enforcement. This is borrowed from English common law. And there is implicit provision in the Constitution of India. There is no explicit provision apart from the Article 34 that what it means, what does it constitute martial law, and what are the various rights which will not be available when martial law is in force. All those details are not provided, and it literally means the military power rule. Okay, so or it is the military which gains a major importance in the martial law. It gives abnormal powers to military, and the main aim of this martial law is to restore order, and it is generally imposed in case of war, invasion, insurrection, rebellion, riot, or any violent resistance to the law. In that case, to maintain the law and order, this martial law is imposed. How it is different from national emergency? That this national emergency, which is provided under the Article 352 of the Constitution, has been originated, or this is concept that we have borrowed from the German Constitution or the Weimar Constitution, whereas martial law is taken from the English common law. The scope of impact, the fundamental rights, center-state relation, the legislative powers of the states, the parliament tenure, all those gets impacted after national emergency, whereas with the martial law, it is the only fundamental rights which is getting impacted as per the Article 34. The governments and courts continue even during the time of the national emergency in place, but the government and the courts get suspended in the case of the martial law. The grounds of imposition, the war, external aggression, and the armed rebellion, which was earlier the internal disturbance, is the ground for the national emergency, whereas the breakdown of law and order is the ground for the martial law. Geographical scope of the national emergency is entire country or any part of it, whereas the martial law can be imposed in any of the specific area. There are explicit provisions under the Article 352 which has been provided for the national emergency, whereas the martial law is implicit, not directly mentioned apart from Article 34 of the Constitution. This is a previous year question that was asked in 2022, that which of the following are the exclusive power of the Lok Sabha? That to ratify the declaration of the emergency, to pass a no confidence motion against the Council of the Ministers, and to impeach the President of India. You know that the passing of no confidence motion is a specific exclusive power of the Lok Sabha. So option 2 is correct. We'll eliminate C and D. We are left with true option. To ratify a declaration of emergency, just if you know that this should be ratified within 1 month, if you know the concept well, that is well and good. But just think that Lok Sabha doesn't continue for all the months of the year. So if at the time that if Lok Sabha is not in the session, do the constitutional makers will want that it should not be ratified by the Rajya Sabha also? That Rajya Sabha should wait when the Lok Sabha should be in the session, only then Rajya Sabha can pass. So how can it be the exclusive power of the Lok Sabha? If Lok Sabha is not in session, Rajya Sabha can pass, and then when the Lok Sabha is coming in session, then they should pass the resolution for the emergency. So to ratify a declaration of emergency, this ratification is not the exclusive power of the Lok Sabha. So correct answer is B, 2 only. Next topic is the foreign portfolio investors, which we were talking that they have withdrawn almost 23,710 crore from equities in February so far, that is in last 23 days itself. This particular topic related to GS paper 3, liberalization, growth and development, and this has appeared in today's Indian Express, page number 10. So the foreign portfolio investors have pulled out this much 23,700 crore from Indian equity markets so far this month, pushing total outflow passed 1 lakh crore in 2025 amid rising global tensions due to the uncertainty that is the tariff war, trade war that is there. The market concerned heightened reports that the US President Trump was considering imposing new tariff on steel, aluminum imports along with the reciprocal tariffs of several countries. Also, in the previous few quarters, there has been lackluster corporate earning. Why? There are multiple reasons for this. First of all, the consumption demand was not very good. Why? Because people did not witness the good real wage growth as compared to the inflation that was there in the economy. And when there was high inflation in the economy, majorly the food inflation, it also decreased the bargaining capacity of the people. When the bargaining capacity has declined, it also led to a lower demand of goods and services. When lower demand of goods and services, the earnings of the corporates will decline. When the earnings of the corporate will decline, the profitability of the corporates will decline. When the profitability of the corporates will decline, obviously the people who have invested in these companies, they will leave the company, and that is what is happening, that they are selling and they are going outside India. The capital flight that we are witnessing. If you talk about the FDI and FPI, the major difference in the FDI, the investors wants direct ownership of a business or asset, whereas in the FPI, they try to purchase financial assets like stocks, bonds, etc. Here in the FDI, investors seek significant control over the company or the assets, where in the FPI, investors have little or no control over the company or the assets. An FDI is generally a long-term investment, whereas the FPI is typically shorter-term, months to year, and that is the reason we are witnessing this capital flight that we happened in a shorter span of time. Also, the FDI is considered a high-riskier business due to involvement in the local economy. They cannot sell their assets, they cannot sell their investment in a shorter span of time and leave the country. And they, due to this time horizon that they might have to be invested for a longer time, that creates a risk situation for them, that if there is a economic policy which is changed by the government, that might impact their investment. Also, the FPI is considered low riskier as the investment are spread across various companies of different sectors, not only limited to any one company, whereas in FDI it is limited to one company of any one sector itself. If the government is changing the economic policy of any one specific sector, for any one specific sector, obviously the investment gets jeopardized. Whenever FDI comes, they want that business to expand, they want that business to grow, and that is the reason transfer of technology also happens in the case of FDI, that leads to, or that helps to increasing the profitability of the company, that also helps in decreasing the cost of production. So it also creates jobs, transfer technology, and boost economic growth, whereas the FPI can provide capital for the short-term needs, and it can contribute to the market liquidity, that is availability of that currency in the economy. Regulation, the FDI is often subject to government approval or restriction, whereas the FPI is generally less regulated than FDI. Example, building a factory in another country or acquiring a foreign country, buying stocks, bonds, or foreign companies, investing in mutual funds or ETFs that hold foreign assets. That is an example of FPI itself. Then this PYQ that was asked in 2020 with reference to foreign direct investment in India, which of the following is considered its major characteristics? What I have said, that they are going for a direct ownership of business or assets. So try to get, or try to give the answer of this question in the comment box. That is all from today's Analyst. Thank you very much. All the very best. Keep studying.